The crystalline halls of the Velkari royal palace echoed with cruel laughter as Princess Zarathil stood before the assembled nobility. Her silver skin had lost its usual luminescent glow, and her four arms hung limply at her sides in defeat. The Grand Council chamber stretched endlessly above her with its floating platforms, where the most powerful lords of the empire sneered down at her humiliation. "Behold the sterile princess," announced her younger sister Morazeth from the highest platform. Her voice carried the musical quality that all fertile Velkari possessed, and her skin blazed with the golden light of reproductive capability. 20 cycles of age and still empty of purpose. The assembled lords responded with the chittering sound that passed for amusement among their species. Lord Commander Vexitar raised his ceremonial staff and the sound grew louder. Even the younger nobility joined in making Zarathil feel like a specimen in a laboratory, rather than royalty. Emperor Thexmor sat upon the throne of infinite worlds, with his massive form radiating disappointment. His 6 eyes never left his eldest daughter as she endured the mockery. The crown upon his head pulsed with the combined life force of 1 billion subjects, yet he showed no mercy for his own blood. "The medical evaluators have confirmed what we suspected," declared court physician Nalseth as she stepped forward with her data crystal glowing red. "Princess Zarathil lacks the neural pathways necessary for reproduction. Her genetic template shows no compatibility markers for any known species in our databases." Another wave of laughter swept through the chamber. Princess Morazeth descended from her platform with graceful movements that showcased her perfect biological harmony. She circled her older sister like a predator examining wounded prey. "Perhaps we should send her to serve in the outer colonies," suggested Lord Admiral Kexaval, with his scarred face twisting into what might have been a smile. "The mining worlds always need administrators who cannot be distracted by family obligations." "Too generous," replied Duchess Yarnina from her jeweled platform. "Why waste resources on the defective when we have so many worthy individuals seeking advancement?" Zarathil felt each word like a physical blow. In Velkari society, fertility determined everything from political power to social standing to basic respect. Those who could not reproduce were considered evolutionary dead ends. She had spent years hoping that her condition might change or that some medical breakthrough might restore her worth. The final humiliation came when Emperor Thexmor rose from his throne. The entire chamber fell silent as his voice boomed across the crystalline architecture. "Tomorrow marks the festival of new life," he announced. "As tradition demands, all royal family members must participate in the fertility ceremony before our people." Zarathil knew what this meant. She would be required to undergo the public ritual where her reproductive status would be examined by the High Biologics Council in front of thousands of citizens. Her failure would be broadcast across the empire. "Father, surely there must be another way," she managed to speak despite her terror. "The law is absolute," he replied with no warmth in his ancient voice. "Even my own daughter cannot escape the requirements of our civilization." That night, Zarathil stood alone on her balcony overlooking the capital city of Velthuran. The purple sky was filled with floating transport vessels and orbital platforms that housed billions of her people. Each light represented citizens who would tomorrow witness her disgrace. Her personal aide Zixara approached with careful steps. The smaller female had served the princess since childhood and was one of the few who still showed her kindness. "My lady, perhaps you should prepare your statement for tomorrow," Zixara suggested gently. "What statement could possibly matter now?" Zarathil responded while watching the city lights flicker. "I'm about to become the greatest embarrassment in royal history." The festival of new life dawned with the traditional golden sunrise that bathed the capital in warm light. Citizens gathered in massive amphitheaters throughout the empire to witness the ceremony through holographic projection. The royal family took their positions on the sacred platform of biological truth. High Biologics Counselor Morthek began the ancient ritual with her scanning instruments humming to life. Princess Morazeth went first, as was proper for the heir apparent. Her readings caused the entire crowd to cheer as golden light erupted from the scanner, showing her incredible fertility potential. "Princess Morazeth shows compatibility with over 40 subspecies," announced the counselor. Her offspring could lead our empire to unprecedented expansion. The crowd roared its approval. Several younger nobles immediately began formal courtship, displays hoping to win her attention. Princess Morazeth basked in the adoration while casting smug glances at her older sister. Then came Zarathiel's turn. She approached the scanning platform on unsteady legs while thousands of eyes watched her every movement. The scanner activated with its usual harmonic resonance, but instead of golden light, only cold blue energy emerged. Princess Zarathiel shows 0 compatibility markers, announced Counselor Morthek with barely concealed disgust. Her genetic template registers as completely sterile across all known biological parameters. The silence that followed was worse than any laughter. Citizens throughout the empire sat in shocked quiet as they processed this unprecedented failure. Never before had a member of the royal family shown such complete biological inadequacy. Then the mockery began. Someone in the crowd started slow clapping, and others joined until the sound became thunderous. Citizens threw symbolic fertility, offerings at the platform while chanting traditional songs of reproductive success, but changing the words to mock the sterile princess. Emperor Thexmor stepped forward, and the crowd gradually quieted. His expression showed no emotion as he looked down at his eldest daughter, who knelt in defeat on the scanning platform. Princess Zarathiel, he announced in a voice that carried across the empire. By the ancient laws of our people, you are no longer fit to hold noble rank. Your biological failure brings shame upon our bloodline and weakens our civilization. He paused while the full weight of his words settled over the assembled masses. However, I am not without mercy, he continued. Rather than stripping you of all status, I offer you a chance to serve the empire in your own limited way. You will take command of the exploration vessel Shadow End and conduct surveys in the most distant sectors of our territory. Princess Morazeth laughed openly at this announcement. The Shadow End was notorious throughout the fleet as a death ship. Its previous 3 captains had died horrible deaths while its crew suffered constant mechanical failures and supply shortages. Perhaps the barbaric humans in the frontier regions will teach you what it means to be truly worthless, added the Emperor with cruel satisfaction. As the ceremony concluded and citizens dispersed to celebrate the traditional fertility festivals, Zarathiel found herself alone with her shame. Guards escorted her to the military shipyards where the Shadow End waited like a mechanical vulture. The vessel was even worse than its reputation suggested. Hull plating showed signs of repeated emergency repairs while the engine systems leaked suspicious fluids. The bridge contained outdated equipment that had been obsolete for decades. Her new crew consisted of other social outcasts and military rejects. They looked at their new captain with mixtures of pity and resentment, knowing that serving under the sterile princess would destroy any chance of career advancement. As the Shadow End departed from Velkari space toward the unknown dangers of the human frontier, something unexpected happened. Ancient warning beacons positioned around the boundary regions began activating for the first time in over 1,000 years. Their crimson light pulsed with urgent messages that no living Velkari could translate. The exiled princess watched her homeworld shrink behind her while ahead lay mysteries that would change the fate of the galaxy. She did not yet know that her greatest weakness would become her species' salvation, or that the barbaric humans awaiting her would prove more civilized than her own people. The Shadow End disappeared into the void, carrying its disgraced captain toward a destiny none could imagine. The Shadow End emerged from hyperspace at the edge of what Velkari star charts labeled as primitive human territory. Princess Zarathiel expected to find crude metal ships and basic planetary settlements that would make her exile seem less harsh, by comparison. Instead, her sensors detected something far more disturbing than barbarian civilizations. Nothing. Complete and absolute silence stretched across entire star systems where intelligence reports indicated thriving human colonies should exist. Navigation Officer Rixtel checked his instruments 3 times before reporting his findings to the bridge. My lady, the long-range scanners show no energy signatures from any of the targeted worlds, he announced with confusion evident in his voice. No communications traffic, no orbital platforms, no signs of technological activity whatsoever. Zarathiel. studied the tactical displays showing dozens of star systems that appeared completely lifeless. According to Velkari intelligence databases, these regions should contain millions of humans across hundreds of worlds. The absence of any detectable civilization created an eerie atmosphere that affected even her hardened crew of outcasts. "Take us to the nearest inhabited system," she commanded while trying to hide her growing unease. Perhaps our information was incorrect about human expansion patterns. The Shadow End limped toward a system designated as Harbor Prime in the ancient star charts. As they approached the fourth planet, their sensors finally detected artificial structures, but something was fundamentally wrong with the readings. Chief Science Officer Keela Nara brought her preliminary report to the bridge with her normal confidence replaced by obvious bewilderment. "Princess, the planetary scans show extensive urban development across 3 continents," she explained while highlighting areas on the main display. However, life sign readings show 0 biological activity. No humans, no animals, no plant life. Beyond basic bacterial levels. Through the main view screen, they could see a world that should have been bustling with activity. Massive cities spread across the continents with towering structures that reached toward the sky. Transportation networks connected urban centers in carefully planned patterns that spoke of advanced engineering capabilities. But everything was empty. "Send down a survey team," ordered Zarathiel despite the protests from her security chief. "I want to know what happened to these humans and why their colonies appear abandoned." The away team returned hours later with disturbing evidence. The human settlements showed no signs of warfare or natural disaster. Personal belongings remained in homes while vehicles sat parked in orderly formations. Food had been left half-prepared in kitchens while children's toys were scattered in parks, as if families had simply vanished mid-activity. Most disturbing were the geometric burn patterns found throughout each city. Perfectly circular scars had been burned into streets, buildings, and even the landscape itself. The marks showed signs of incredible heat applied with surgical precision, leaving behind only smooth glass surfaces. Whatever took these humans did, so with technology far beyond anything in our databases, reported Security Chief Jorvak with unusual nervousness. The precision required for these extraction patterns suggests capabilities that exceed even our most advanced systems. Before Zarathiel could respond to this unsettling report, her communications officer detected an incoming distress signal. The transmission used human language protocols but carried an urgency that transcended species barriers. "Unknown vessel. This is Captain Linda Rodriguez of the human ship Starfall," came a voice speaking accented galactic standard. "You are in extreme danger and need to evacuate this system immediately." Princess Zarathiel found herself intrigued despite the warning. Here finally was evidence that humans still existed in this region, though their captain seemed to possess knowledge about whatever had eliminated the colonies. "This is Princess Zarathiel of the Velkari vessel Shadow End," she responded. "What is the nature of this danger you speak of?" A pause followed before the human captain replied with barely controlled fear in her voice. "Princess, you have entered a hunting ground," Rodriguez explained. "The things that destroyed these worlds are still active in this region, and your biosignatures will attract them like a beacon." As if summoned by her words, the Shadow End sensors detected massive objects emerging from the asteroid field at the system edge. The vessels appeared to be constructed from some kind of living metal that shifted and writhed as they moved through space. Their organic curves contrasted sharply with traditional starship designs. "Devourer ships," transmitted Captain Rodriguez with urgent desperation. "Princess, you need to follow my navigation beacon immediately if you want to survive the next 10 minutes. Zarathiel had never heard the term devourer before, but the approaching vessels radiated malevolent hunger that could be felt even across the void of space. Their hulls pulsed with sickly light while weapon ports opened to reveal teeth-like projections that seemed designed for consumption rather than destruction. "All power to engines," she commanded as the Shadow End attempted to follow the human captain navigation beacon. "Maximum acceleration toward those coordinates." The Devourer ships pursued with terrifying speed that defied conventional physics. Their organic hulls seemed to bend space around them while energy tendrils reached out seeking to ensnare both vessels. The shadow end shuddered under hits from weapons that drained power rather than causing explosive damage. Captain Rodriguez proved to be an exceptional pilot as her ship Starfall wove through the asteroid field with precision that impressed even Velkari standards. The human vessel was smaller than the shadow end, but moved with graceful efficiency that spoke of extensive combat experience. "Princess, we are approaching a safe zone," transmitted Rodriguez as they entered a nebula field that seemed to confuse the pursuing devourers. "My ship will guide you to Admiral Washington Sanctuary Base." The Starfall led them through a maze of cosmic dust and charged particles that somehow disrupted the devourer tracking systems. Hidden deep within the nebula lay a massive mobile installation that defied easy categorization. The structure appeared to be built from salvaged ships of a dozen different species, all welded together in a configuration that prioritized function over aesthetics. Weapons platforms bristled from every available surface while docking bays showed signs of constant modification and repair. "Welcome to Haven Station," announced a new voice over the communications system. "This is Admiral Carol Washington commanding the Human Defense Coalition." As both ships entered the main docking bay, Zarathiel got her first close look at the humans. She had expected to find primitive and crude. Instead, she observed a military organization that operated with efficiency born from desperate necessity. Captain Linda Rodriguez met the Velkari princess at the airlock with her hand extended in what appeared to be a greeting gesture. The human woman showed evidence of extensive combat modifications, including prosthetic legs that moved with mechanical precision. "Princess, welcome to what remains of human civilization in this sector," Rodriguez said with grim humor. "I hope you brought weapons because we are going to need all the help we can get." Rodriguez led Zarathiel through corridors filled with activity as humans of all ages worked to maintain their mobile fortress. Children helped repair equipment while elderly individuals operated communications arrays. Everyone contributed to the war effort regardless of their biological status. "How long have you been fighting these devourers?" asked Zarathiel as they walked toward the command center. "3 years since they first appeared in our space," Rodriguez replied while navigating around repair crews. "They consume everything biological, then move on to the next system. We estimate they have eliminated over 60% of human colonies in this region." They entered a command center where Admiral Carol Washington stood studying tactical displays that showed devourer movements across dozens of star systems. The human leader was an older woman whose gray hair and scarred face spoke of years spent in desperate warfare. "Princess Zarathiel," greeted the Admiral without looking away from her displays. "Captain Rodriguez tells me your ship survived direct contact with devourer forces without significant biological consumption." Zarathiel felt confused by this statement until the Admiral turned to face her with eyes that held terrible knowledge. "That should be impossible," Washington continued. "The devourers locate prey through biological signature detection. Every living thing in the galaxy shows up on their sensors like a blazing star." The Admiral paused while studying readings from a handheld scanner pointed at the Velkari princess. "Except apparently for you," she concluded with amazement growing in her voice. "Princess, your biological signature barely registers on our most sensitive equipment. To the devourers, you would be essentially invisible." The implications of this discovery hit Zarathiel like a physical blow. The genetic defect that had made her worthless to her own people might be the key to defeating an enemy that had brought humanity to the brink of extinction. "Admiral, I believe we need to have a very long conversation about these devourers and how my condition might help your people survive," she said, while realizing that her exile had brought her to exactly where the galaxy needed her to be. 3 months had passed since Princess Zarathiel first arrived at Haven Station, and she found herself amazed by human adaptability in ways that challenged everything she had been taught about inferior species. Unlike the rigid caste system of her own people, humans promoted individuals based purely on their contributions to the war effort. Commander Amy Foster exemplified this remarkable flexibility. The young human had risen from enlisted ranks to squadron leader within 2 years, based solely on her tactical brilliance during evacuation missions. She led desperate rescue operations into devourer-infested systems with success rates that defied statistical probability. Princess, you need to understand that we do not have the luxury of considering bloodlines or genetic purity, explained Foster as they reviewed mission reports in the strategy room. When people are dying, we use whoever can save them regardless of their background or species. Zarathiel watched through the observation deck as human engineers worked alongside her own crew members to upgrade the Shadow End with hybrid technology. Velkari energy systems merged seamlessly with human targeting computers while both species shared knowledge that would have been forbidden in the Empire. The cooperation extended beyond mere military necessity. Dr. Lisa Chen had spent weeks studying Velkari biological data while sharing human medical advances that surpassed anything in Imperial databases. The human scientist worked with infectious enthusiasm that reminded Zarathiel why innovation required freedom rather than rigid hierarchy. Your genetic structure shows fascinating parallels to human neural development patterns, Chen explained during one of their research sessions. The same pathways that prevent standard Velkari reproduction might actually enhance compatibility with human genetic material. Most surprisingly, Zarathiel found herself drawn to Lieutenant Beth Parker, whose fighter squadron had suffered devastating losses protecting civilian evacuations. The human pilot carried herself with quiet dignity that reminded the princess of nobility at its finest, rather than the petty cruelty she had endured at home. Beth never showed the pity or disgust that Velkari nobles displayed when confronted with biological inadequacy. Instead, she treated Zarathiel as an equal, whose unique abilities made her valuable to their cause. You saved my entire squadron during the Devourer ambush at Kepler Station, Beth said one evening as they sat together, watching the nebula lights shift outside the observation lounge. Your bio-invisibility allowed you to guide rescue ships through their sensor net without triggering their feeding response. The developing relationship between the exiled princess and human pilot became deeper than either had expected. Beth understood loss and rejection, having watched her squadmates die one by one during impossible missions. Zarathiel found comfort in someone who judged her by actions rather than reproductive capability. Their romance scandalized some of the more traditional Velkari crew members who whispered about further degradation of their fallen princess. But Admiral Washington and the human leadership celebrated the growing bonds between species as evidence that cooperation could overcome any obstacle. Dr. Chen breakthrough came during her 4th month of research when she discovered the true nature of Zarathiel genetic uniqueness. The princess condition was not actually infertility, but rather a completely different reproductive mechanism that had never been documented in Velkari medical texts. Princess, your neural pathways are designed for something far more complex than standard biological reproduction, Chen announced with excitement during a medical briefing. Your genetics appear optimized for hybrid synthesis using multiple species, DNA templates. The implications staggered everyone present. Rather than being biologically defective, Zarathiel possessed reproductive capabilities that exceeded anything known to Velkari science. Her body could potentially create offspring incorporating beneficial traits from any compatible species. The process would require artificial synthesis combining your unique neural patterns with human genetic material, Chen continued while displaying complex molecular diagrams. The resulting hybrid would inherit your bio-invisibility while retaining human adaptability and innovation. Admiral Washington saw the strategic implications immediately. A child possessing both Velkari biological advantages and human mental flexibility could become the key to understanding devourer weaknesses. The hybrid might serve as a bridge between species or even as a translator for alien communication. Princess, this is obviously your choice to make, Washington said carefully. But if you and Lieutenant Parker were willing to attempt this procedure, it could change the course of our war. Beth and Zarathiel discussed the proposal privately over several days while considering all the risks involved. The synthesis process had never been attempted, and success could not be guaranteed. Even if successful, the child would face challenges as the first of its kind in the galaxy. I want to do this, Beth finally declared with characteristic determination. Not just because it might help win the war, but because I want to build something beautiful with you despite all the darkness around us. The synthesis procedure took place in Dr. Chen's most advanced laboratory under conditions of absolute secrecy. Only essential personnel were permitted access, while the process unfolded over several critical hours. Zarathiel neural patterns guided the combination of genetic material in ways that pushed the boundaries of known science. When the artificial gestation chamber finally activated, everyone held their breath, waiting to see if the impossible had been achieved. The developing embryo showed vital signs that exceeded all projected parameters, while displaying genetic markers from both parent species. Maya, as they named her, developed at an accelerated rate that amazed even Dr. Chen. Within months, she demonstrated cognitive abilities that surpassed typical development patterns for either humans or Velkari. Her neural structure showed unprecedented complexity with pathways that defied conventional understanding. The child first demonstrated her unique abilities during a routine medical examination when she began responding to stimuli that were not present in the laboratory. Dr. Chen instruments detected no unusual energy signatures, yet Maya seemed to be reacting to something beyond normal sensory input. She appears to be perceiving electromagnetic patterns that our equipment cannot register, Chen reported with wonder. Her neural activity spikes whenever devourer ships operate within a 50 light-year radius. More remarkably, Maya began exhibiting behavioral patterns that suggested some form of communication with the entities everyone else considered purely destructive. She would gesture toward empty space while making sounds that resembled neither human speech nor Velkari harmonics. During one particularly intense episode, Maya suddenly spoke her first clear words while pointing toward the station main display. "They hurt," she said with a voice that carried impossible sadness. "Lost and hungry and cannot remember home." The implications sent shockwaves through Haven Station command structure. If Maya could somehow communicate with the devourers, it suggested these entities possessed intelligence, rather than operating on pure instinct. Perhaps they were not machines designed for consumption, but rather corrupted biological beings, seeking something they had lost. "Princess, your daughter may be the first individual capable of understanding what the devourers actually want," Admiral Washington said with growing excitement. "If they are trying to communicate, rather than simply destroy, we might be able to find a solution that does not require endless warfare." Beth held Maya while the child continued making gestures toward the display screen. The infant seemed to be responding to signals that no one else could detect, while her expression showed empathy rather than fear. "She sees them as suffering rather than evil," Beth observed with maternal protectiveness. "Maybe that is exactly the perspective we need to end this conflict." As Maya grew stronger, her abilities expanded beyond simple detection of devourer presence. She began producing complex harmonic patterns that seemed to calm the entities when played through communication arrays. The feeding frenzies that typically accompanied devourer attacks became less aggressive when exposed to her unique neural signatures. Dr. Chen's studies revealed that Maya brain structure incorporated elements that appeared designed specifically for interspecies communication. Her hybrid nature allowed her to process information in ways that neither parent species could achieve independently. "Your daughter represents evolutionary advancement that might take normal species millions of years to develop," Chen explained, to both proud parents. "She could be the key not just to ending our war with the devourers, but to creating lasting peace between all intelligent species." Princess Zarathiel watched her impossible child with wonder and growing hope. The biological failure that had caused her exile from the Velkari Empire had instead produced the galaxy's greatest hope for unity and understanding. Maya existence proved that true worth came from love and cooperation rather than rigid genetic categories. The exiled princess who had once been mocked as sterile had given birth to the future. Maya had grown into a remarkable child whose abilities surpassed even Dr. Chen's most optimistic projections. At barely 2 years old, she could communicate complex concepts through harmonic patterns that resonated across multiple species' communication frequencies. Her hybrid neural structure allowed her to process information in ways that amazed human and Velkari scientists alike. The breakthrough came during a coordinated devourer attack on the mining colony of New Terra. Maya had been observing the tactical displays when she suddenly began producing a series of musical tones that caused every nearby devourer ship to halt their advance. "Mama, they remember now," Maya said while pointing at the display screen. "They were like us once, but the hungry metal made them forget." Admiral Washington immediately ordered all ships to maintain position while Dr. Chen began recording Maya harmonic communications. The child continued her strange song while the devourer vessels responded with similar tonal patterns that gradually became more complex and organized. "Admiral, I think we are witnessing the first successful communication between our species and the devourers," Chen reported with barely contained excitement. "Maya appears to be triggering some kind of memory recovery in their neural networks. Through Maya's unique abilities, they learned the tragic truth about their enemies. The devourers had once been a proud civilization called the Zephrani, who achieved incredible technological advancement. Faced with the inevitable decline of their biological forms, they chose to merge consciousness with their machines to achieve immortality. The fusion process had gone catastrophically wrong. Instead of preserving their minds, the technology corrupted their neural patterns and drove them insane with hunger for the biological essence they had lost. For thousands of years they had wandered the galaxy, consuming other species while trying desperately to remember what they had once been. "They are not evil," Maya explained to the gathered command staff with wisdom far beyond her years. "They are broken and lost and trying to find their way home." Princess Zarathiel found herself moved to tears by her daughter's compassion for beings that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia. Maya refused to see enemies where others saw only monsters, and her empathy opened possibilities that no one had considered. Admiral Washington recognized the strategic implications immediately. If the devourers could be healed rather than destroyed, it would end the war while potentially gaining powerful allies. She began coordinating with other human fleet commanders to spread news of this incredible development. "Princess, we need to unite every available ship for what comes next," Washington explained during a strategic planning session. "Your royal protocols could convince scattered human fleets to join our cause." Zarathiel used her diplomatic training to negotiate with human commanders who had spent years fighting independently. Her noble status carried weight even among alien species, while her demonstrated abilities against the devourers provided credible evidence of her worth. Commander Nancy Stevens led the technical teams developing new technologies based on Maya insights into devourer neural patterns. The hybrid systems combined human innovation with Velkari energy manipulation, and even reformed devourer computational matrices. "We are creating weapons that can heal rather than destroy," Stevens reported with pride. "If Maya can establish communication, during battle we might be able to convert enemy fleets in real time." The growing alliance between humans, reformed Velkari rebels, and even some converted devourers created a coalition unlike anything seen in galactic history. Species that had been enemies for generations worked together with unprecedented cooperation. Everything changed when long-range sensors detected massive hyperspace signatures approaching from Velkari space. The energy readings indicated a full Imperial battle fleet consisting of hundreds of warships accompanied by support vessels and troop transports. "Princess, it appears your people have come to retrieve you," Admiral Washington observed while studying the tactical displays. "That fleet has enough firepower to destroy everything in this sector." Zarathiel recognized the command signatures even before visual confirmation arrived. Princess Moriseth led the expedition aboard the Imperial flagship Infinite Glory with orders to claim Maya as a divine child and return her to the Empire for study. "My sister expects to find me broken and defeated after years in exile among barbarians," Zarathiel explained to Beth while they prepared for the inevitable confrontation. "She has no idea what we have built here, or what Maya represents." The Velkari fleet emerged from hyperspace in perfect formation, with weapons powered and shields active. Princess Moriseth transmitted on royal frequencies demanding immediate surrender of the hybrid child and submission to Imperial authority. "Sister, I have come to rescue you from this primitive wasteland," announced Moriseth with her usual condescending force. "Father has decided to forgive your failures if you surrender the alien hybrid for proper study. Instead of the broken exile, She expected Morazeth discovered Zarathiel commanding a combined fleet that used technology beyond Imperial understanding. Human vessels moved with precision that rivaled Velkari formations while displaying weapon systems that incorporated advances from multiple species. "Sister, you seem confused about who needs rescuing," Zarathiel replied with newfound confidence. "I suggest you withdraw before your fleet suffers unnecessary damage." The battle that followed demonstrated the vast difference between Imperial rigidity and coalition flexibility. Velkari ships operated according to ancient tactical doctrines, while the Allied forces adapted constantly using innovations developed through desperate necessity. Maya's presence on the command bridge allowed her to coordinate with reformed Devourer, vessels that fought alongside human and rebel Velkari ships. Her harmonic communications converted several Imperial vessels mid-battle as their crews realized they were fighting against their own salvation. "Aunt Mora," Maya said through the communication systems with innocent directness. "Why are you hurting?" People who want to help Princess Morazeth found herself shaken by the child's pure empathy and obvious intelligence. This was not the abomination she had expected, but rather a being of remarkable capability and wisdom. The tide of battle turned when Emperor Thexmor himself arrived aboard the massive dreadnought Crown of Worlds. His presence caused both fleets to cease hostilities as Imperial protocol demanded respect for the ruler. "Zarathiel, my daughter, you have exceeded all expectations," the Emperor announced with satisfaction rather than anger. "You have fulfilled the ancient prophecies better than I dared hope." The revelation stunned everyone present. Princess Morazeth stared at her father in confusion while Zarathiel tried to process this unexpected development. "Father, what prophecies do you speak of?" demanded Morazeth with growing alarm. "The Codex of Futures speaks of a sterile mother, who would birth salvation among alien stars," Emperor Thexmor explained with ancient knowledge gleaming in his eyes. "I did not exile Zarathiel as punishment, but rather to fulfill destiny itself." The main Emperor had studied prophecies that predicted the rise of a hybrid child capable of uniting hostile species and healing ancient wounds. Zarathiel's exile had been carefully orchestrated to place her among humans where her unique genetics could produce the prophesied savior. "You sacrificed my happiness for some ancient superstition," Zarathiel accused with justified anger. "I sacrificed your temporary comfort for galactic salvation," the Emperor replied without remorse. The prophecies also warned that the Empire would face extinction without the sterile mother intervention. Morazeth felt her carefully constructed worldview crumbling around her. She had spent years mocking her sister's sterility, only to discover it was part of a divine plan that elevated Zarathiel above all other nobility. "However," the Emperor continued while studying the combined fleet surrounding his position, "I did not anticipate that you would surpass the Empire itself in power and influence." Maya floated gently in the command center, while her presence calmed tensions between the opposing forces. Her hybrid nature symbolized the possibility of unity over conflict and cooperation over conquest. "Grandfather," she said with startling maturity, "your people can join us in healing the galaxy or continue fighting alone against enemies you cannot defeat." Emperor Thexmor realized that his eldest daughter had created something far more valuable than another imperial conquest. The coalition of species working together represented evolutionary advancement that the rigid empire could never achieve. "Princess Zarathiel," he announced formally, "you have proven worthy of leadership that surpasses traditional imperial authority." The exiled princess looked at her father with new understanding. His cruel treatment had been designed to forge her into something greater than conventional nobility. The mockery and rejection had prepared her for the trials that awaited among alien species. But she also knew that her achievements came from cooperation and love, rather than manipulation and prophecy. Maya existed because of the bond between species, not because of ancient predictions. "Father, I accept your acknowledgement but reject your authority," Zarathiel declared with quiet strength. "The coalition we have built represents the future while your empire clings to a dying past." Thanks for watching, and go to next part.